Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new malicious compliance stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first one is titled, "We need to shorten our hedge to 3 feet max." Okay. My husband and I developed an unpleasant relationship with one of our neighbors, mostly because this lady liked to adopt kittens, whom we adore, and then basically throw them outside, where they invaded our backyard and preyed on cute native wildlife like tiny birds, chipmunks, bunnies and so on. There's a bylaw against this, and we made some use of it while she lived next door. After a couple of years, we found out that she was selling and moving away. Yay! However, she was still mad at us, and she shared her feelings with her real estate agent. The agent thought it over and called a very nice and polite bylaw officer to visit us because the hedge between our two properties was technically too high. It was maybe 6 feet high and needed to be half that. There's no real reason for this rule, since we are on the outside of a bend in the road and visibility is fine, but whatever. My husband readily agreed to have this lush, beautiful green hedge, and got out there right away with his heaviest equipment. I quickly realized why he was so cheerful about this big job. As he cut the hedge to half its height, of course most of the greenery was trimmed away, and the result was a stark and, temporarily, sad-looking collection of bare branches and twigs. He carefully cleaned up after himself, and we kept an eye out for the agent. We were so lucky to be there when she next arrived and emerged from her car. Let's say that my husband's malicious compliance did not exactly improve the curb appeal of the next-door property. She stood there for some time, then noticed us regarding her from our living room with gratified expressions, and marched away. So very satisfying, we still sometimes mention it to each other. The next one is titled, "Boss tells him to put more fries down, until he breaks." This happened to a friend of mine and someone who I have worked with for over 20 years. Let's call him Scott. In the late 80s, Scott worked at a Burger King while still in high school. For the first few months he always worked the late shift, and business was usually slow. The owners were a husband-wife team who, as you can imagine, came down hard all the time on the kids working. For the most part, Scott did not have to deal with them outside them parking late at night with binoculars as they spied on the late crew to make sure they did their job. Then summer hit. With summer vacation, Scott was moved to the lunch team. He was not used to how busy it was and was a bit overwhelmed. His main job was on the fryer. He took care of the fries, onion rings, and chicken sandwiches. The lunch crowd was really starting to build up that first day he was on the day crew, and the wife owner walks by Scott, looks over his shoulder, and in a very harsh voice tells him, "Put down more fries," which Scott does. A few minutes later she walks by again, even more agitated, and screams, "Put down more fries, we don't have enough." Scott puts down more. A third time she comes by, and grabs him by the arm and pulls him around. She got right up in his face and said, "Are you some kind of idiot? I said put more fries down now." So Scott did the only thing he knew how to do. He filled every fryer with as many fries as would fit and loaded every single row with as many fries as you could possibly put down. Soon the basket that held the finished fries was overflowing because he had so many. Well, the boss comes around, raises her hands in the air, and starts screaming, "You made too many ducking fries." At which point Scott had enough. He picked up a mustard and ketchup bottle and squeezed them both right into her face and clothes, yelled, "I quit," and stormed out of there. He said he was shaking so bad driving home and was worried the police would show up, but they never did. The next one is titled, "A Lawyer and His Fence." A co-worker told me this story a few years ago. This happened in the early 2000s. So we are electrician and he once had something to do at a lawyer's house. You can imagine a big house and a lot of property, everything was really nice. Except on one side of there was mound of earth, a long pile of dirt, all the way at the property line. He asked said lawyer about it and he told him that he hated that neighbor and had there once a 10 feet 3 meter fence. Well, the neighbor hated him as well and had him tear down the fence since the community regulations only allowed 6.5 feet 2 meter fences. Since he is a lawyer and a mad lad, he read the regulations, bought a lot of dirt, built this long 6.5 feet 2 meter pile of dirt and installed a 6.5 feet 2 meter fence, exactly as the regulations required. That's what happens if a petty lawyer hates you. The next one is titled, "Turn My Hood into a Pocket." Back in high school in the late I was a smarter hole. I like to do things differently, still do. Anyways, I at some point in time after forgetting my locker combo enough times decided to take the lock off the back of the spinner and just not have one. Anyone could simply walk by and open my locker. Make note of this as it's important. I received a pair of expensive over-ear headphones for my birthday and was obviously show them off, use them at school, so I brought them in with me. Due to my locker not actually locking, I wasn't going to leave them in there, so I just carried them with me. All was going well, all the teachers were cool with me just setting them on my desk. Cue the principal seeing me and the MC. Principal, why aren't those in your locker? Me, because my locker can just open for anyone and they're expensive, don't want them stolen. Principal, well, either put in your locker, in the office, or in a pocket. Whatever I say, and put them in my hoodie pocket and turn to leave. Principal, that doesn't count as a pocket, it doesn't close, locker or office. Cue malicious compliance. I took my headphones and put them in the hood of my sweater and pulled the strings shut, and started walking to my next class. Principal, that doesn't count. That's not a pocket. Me, it can hold things and it closes, is it not technically a pocket? I wasn't bothered about it again after that. The next one is titled, Eat as much salad as you can handle. Okay. So this is a story from when I was little, probably about 11. For a little context, I hated veggies, like really hated them. My parents, on the other hand, were those type of people that are all about eating healthy and always had lots of vegetables on hand. So one night my parents were going out and told me before they left, FJ Rocks 003, be sure that you and your sister eat some veggies with your meal. How much? I asked, hoping they wouldn't specify so I could just eat a leaf or two. As much as you can handle. My mum replied. So, fast forward a few hours and it's time to make dinner. My sister, 7, walks into the room and I just whip up some microwave mac and cheese for her. I remember what my mum said and pull out the veggies and give her a small leaf. We always eat the bare minimum healthy food when my parents aren't home. Then the idea forms. Looking in the fridge, we have 2 large bags of greens as well as some other vegetables like carrots, celery, and cucumbers. I remember my mum's exact wording, as much as you can handle. He. I grab every vegetable in sight and stuff it in my face. My sister just stares wide-eyed as I devour handfuls of lettuce, whole carrots, and bags of spinach. I ate every single vegetable in sight. I almost threw up after that. But it was all worth it when my parents came home and saw the empty bags on the counter. And the evidence of what happened was in my very green-stained mouth. The best part? My parents couldn't make it to the store for another week. No more salads for days. The next one is titled, Check all IDs. Even the passengers. This can't possibly backfire. I used to work for a contractor that did gate security on a military installation. It was my job after separating where I was in the I don't know what to do with my life stage. We checked IDs to allow entry onto the base, and this was before we had digital verification. So, match the picture to your face, ensure it's not expired, and ensure it's not an obvious counterfeit. The purpose was simple, verify ID. So, we'd often wave people through that we knew. Hell, our boss would kill us if we asked for his ID. But, you give an inch and some people take a mile. Some co-workers began waving in people that they started to recognize, but didn't really know. This resulted in the expected, a crackdown to ensure that we would check all IDs. Every single ID, even the passengers. The driver could not vouch for the passenger if the passenger did not have an ID. During this crackdown, a summer blockbuster from 2011 was filming on our base. I'm at the gate and a car pulls up. Driver is a major in the Air Force. He has a female passenger who I recognized. Big movie star. He has ID, she doesn't. I turn him around. Him, come on, you don't recognize my passenger? Me, playing dumb, no sir. For all I know, she could be a convict. I cannot name the celebrity due to rule number 2, and that's why I also withheld the name of the movie. I will say that she had served jail time a few years prior, hence my lame joke. The policy was clarified to not include passengers by that very afternoon. I did not get in any trouble. They know who instituted the policy, and they knew the contractors would follow any policy literally. The next one is titled, Call the Police. Sure thing. This happened around 4 or 5 years ago. It was on a weekday night as my father was sleeping in the bedroom, my sister and my mum are watching TV while eating some snacks, and I was about to head back to my apartment about 2 blocks away when suddenly a phone call came in. My mum picked it up and was suddenly berated by whoever was on the other end on the phone call. Since my mum just downed a can of beer, I quickly take over the phone and answered the call. The person who called said that he forgot his pen at the restaurant. The first floor of the house is the restaurant area while second floor and above are the home part, and threatened to call the police and sue us if we didn't open the door and let him get his pen back. During the time that I was on the phone, my mum booted up the CCTV installed in the restaurant and looked through the footage and let me watch it as I was talking, which let me found out several things. 1. The CCTV clearly showed him grabbing his pen when he left the restaurant. 2. The person was found taking a small bag of unidentified stuff into the bathroom, but not taking it with him when he left. We installed one of the cameras right outside the bathroom door. Well then, if you ask so. I smilingly agreed to call the police, and few minutes later, both the phone caller and the police arrived at the restaurant. Right off the bat I instantly knew that that person is high on something, either on drugs or on alcohol. I quickly showed both the officer and the person the footage, which led to the person trying to apologize and leave the place. But then I told the police that he should probably do a quick test on said person since I also showed them the bathroom door footage. Turns out, I was right. That caller did use drug the whole day. He even threw the drug bag inside the bathroom trash can, which the police was able to find since there were no garbage trucks that day. After that, the phone caller is sure with false accusations and drug owning, and is now serving his sentence in the jail. The next one is titled, Sorting the Garbage Was Not in My Job Description. A few years ago I took a job as a night cleaner for a business after hours. It deals with sensitive information, so I will be vague on the actual business. When I took the job I was instructed how to handle the garbage from around the building. Paper only was to be put in the trash cans at the desks. I was instructed to save the papers from those trash cans for 1 week before throwing them out. Food items were to be placed in specific garbage cans around the building and those were thrown out nightly. About a year into the job the rules started to go out the window for the workers. More and more often I started finding half-drank cups of coffee mixed into the papers I was to save. I salvaged the pages I could and threw out the rest. What else could I do? I commented to my boss a few times about this, but it just turned into a few days of the no drinks then back to drinks in the wrong trash cans. Then it got worse. Entire leftovers from a person's lunch ended up in their desk trash cans. To the point there was no salvaging any of the papers inside them. After a month of this I said to myself, fine. They want me to save the trash in those cans. I will save the trash in those cans. And that's exactly what I did. Half a container of Chinese food with the paper, into the save bag. Most of a now melted milkshake and a receipt, into the save bag. Trash from the actual lunch room, I thought I saw paper in there, so for good measure let's save that too. The first week wasn't too horrible. The smell hadn't left the storage room just yet. Then we got a heat wave. By end of week 2 it was ripe. Start of week 3 there was no escaping the smell. Wednesday of week 3 I got told by one of the managers, go ahead and throw out all the trash from the garbage cans. We are not throwing out any papers in them anymore. You got it. Thursday I showed up with 2 full cans of air freshener and emptied them both. My job is much easier and quicker now that I don't have to worry about saving the trash. Smells a lot better too. The next one is titled, Want Me to Clean the Bathroom in the Middle of Lunch Rush? Sure thing. This event happened about a year ago, when working at the good old Golden Arches. Details may be a small bit fuzzy. So, during this particular lunch rush, I was the only one on register, giving me the privilege of running around the lobby, restocking, sweeping, mopping, the general stuff. When the rush slowed a bit but was definitely not over, my manager pulled up and asked me to check on the bathrooms. Alright, not a big deal, and I haven't looked at them since I clocked in a good few hours ago. Popped in both bathrooms, looking them over and taking mental notes that it needed some cleaning, then went back to taking orders. A good 5 or so minutes later, I noticed my manager come out of the bathrooms, looking a bit upset. We lock eyes and she makes a beeline toward me. "Why haven't you taken care of the bathrooms like I asked?" I replied with a simple, "I'm the only one up here in the middle of a rush, there is no time to clean them." She did not like that, and angrily tells me to grab a bucket with bleach and scrub the bathrooms until they were spotless. My post would be covered by one of the other managers on duty. "Alright, fine, I'll make them spotless." Proceeding to the back of the building, I grab some cleaning supplies, bucket of hot water and diluted bleach, mop bucket filled with bubbles, nice fresh sponge, a whole roll of paper towels, and a good few pairs of gloves to boot. Taking my small arsenal to the bathroom, I got to cleaning everything. I spent a good 30+ minutes in each bathroom, scrubbing, mopping, spraying. All the while people are coming in and out of the bathrooms, grubbing up all my work. When transitioning between bathrooms, the manager that took over my post commented it doesn't take that long to clean them. I just stated, she wants them spotless. And continued. Finally finishing, after the better part of an hour and a half, I replaced my arsenal and washed up. Ready to get back to my post on the register, which was rather behind. All my hard work was in vain as the bathrooms were once again trashed, worse, if I may add, less than an hour later. Did I also mention we were severely understaffed that day? The next one is titled, "No Testing?" No problem. This was a few years ago. Back then I was senior lead on a software development team. I was working on a contract for a horrible client, commercial mortgage-backed securities. Even though I regularly stayed until 10 p.m. to keep up with stuff, they made a big stink about being 10 or 15 minutes late in the morning. So fine, I started coming in exactly at 9 a.m. and leaving exactly at 6 p.m. I would literally hang up in the middle of a call at 5:59 p.m. Anyway, the contract was ending and I knew they didn't have support to keep running the application after we were gone, but I was tired of their bullshit. The last major scope of work we had, they were pressuring us to finish by some arbitrary deadline. I wouldn't budget on my estimate, so they talked my boss into just skipping testing. Their logic was that we always produced good quality code, so we could probably skip the testing. Just do it right the first time, they said. Against all my arguments, my boss forced me to release the code without any formal testing. We did unit testing to see if there were any errors, but did not do any testing to see if any of the results were actually correct. We release the code and everything is fine for a few weeks. When they run end-of-the-month reports they notice all the numbers were way off. They call us in and we take a look at it. Yep, simple problem. There was a missing where clause on a single SQL statement. What that meant was that, when the system was running complicated financial calculations, it was running the calculation on all loans, not just the loan the user was looking at. So it looked correct as they were working, but every time someone saved, it scrambled all the numbers for every other record that had already been saved. An entire month of an entire department's work was lost. All I could say was, this is why we do testing. The last one is titled, "Get that tape off your floor." This is a story from my father-in-law while he was enlisted in the Navy. It's one of my favorites and I wanted to share it. Names will be changed for anonymity. One night my father-in-law's roommate, John, and my father-in-law, Joe, had some friends over in their tiny barracks room to listen to music and have some drinks. They were scheduled to have a room inspection the following morning, so no one wanted to make a mess of their rooms since they had been cleaning all day. As the night drew on, and the drinks kept flowing, everyone was pretty shit-faced, and evidently, making a mess. Next thing they knew, one of the guys passed out and fell out of his chair. As everyone laughed, one of their friends, in a drunken stupor, thought it would be funny to tape him to the floor. So, they grabbed some tape and started to tape him up. Unfortunately, the tape wouldn't stick very well. They decided to make an outline of him, like it was a crime scene, instead. Not too long after, they called it a night. The next morning, John and Joe woke up late, hangover, and half-assed attempted to clean up the mess before hustling off to work. The tape outline was still on the floor, not thinking much of it. While they were at work, the inspection took place. Just their luck, the inspector was the Navy chief. They got back to their room and found the inspection sheet. If you got the white sheet you were good to go. If you got the yellow sheet you knew you had some things that needed to be done before the next inspection. If you go the pink sheet, you failed and would have to be re-inspected the following day while in dress uniform. Well, they got the pink sheet. On the sheet it said that tape was not allowed to be on the floor and must be removed. There were other issues too, but that was the main reason. So, John and Joe started cleaning up and thought it was stupid that they couldn't keep the outlined body on the floor. It wasn't bothering anyone. The inspector was just being in a hole. But they removed the tape from the floor, as ordered. The next day, Joe and John were ready for the inspection. They stood outside our door in their dress whites, at attention, when the inspector arrived. He walked in and could clearly hear him talking about how the room looked much better than the day prior and made statements about why didn't it look like this yesterday? And this is how a room should look like all the time. Then all of a sudden they heard, "What the hell?" The Navy chief yells, "Last name's Joe, John, get your butts over here right now. What the hell is on your ceiling?" Joe, being the little idiot he is, stated matter-of-factly, "It is the outlined body, sir. You said we can't have it on the floor. So, we took it off the floor, sir." Oh, his face, you could literally see the rage building up. In a short tone, he told them to get the tape of the ducking ceiling and to not do it again. He passed them. Thanks for listening.